Hello to all of the Real Progressives out there. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Start with Real Progressives plugs as usual. You guys know the drill. If you want to learn more about us or support our organization, find any of our content, articles, podcasts, etc., go to realprogressives.org. You can also find our Patreon there if you'd like to contribute to our organization. Every little bit helps, you guys. We very much appreciate the help. We're engaged in media, education, activism, organizing, all this kind of stuff. So please go to our website if you want to contribute or learn more about us. I wanted to get back to a story that kind of connects with the stories I was talking about before I discussed the Occupy stuff with Jay. That is that the CIA and NSA, we were talking about the Pentagon and contractors, right? And how the military-industrial complex has been so detrimental to our foreign policy. The intelligence community is also involved in a similar scheme, right? And it's come out that ex-CIA and ex-NSA officials are effectively able to like sell the information that they have because they have U.S. Clearances. So I'm going to show you guys a clip here. This is Krystal Ball from Breaking Points, who went over some of these details and I thought covered them quite well. So I'm going to show you this clip about the bones of the story, and then we'll come back and discuss.
Deep state story for you here. This one about the CIA. This is actually, there's a lot to this story. Let's go ahead and throw this New York Times tear sheet up on the screen. So ex-U.S. intelligence officers admit to hacking crimes in work for the Emiratis. The lead is 3 former American intelligence officers hired by the UAE to carry out sophisticated cyber operations, admitted to hacking crimes and to violating U.S. export laws that restrict the transfer of military technology to foreign governments. That's according to court documents that were just made public. Those 3 men, Mark Baer, Ryan Adams, and Daniel Garicki, they admitted violating U.S. laws as part of a 3-year deferred prosecution agreement. If the men comply with that agreement, the Justice Department will drop the criminal prosecution. They will also pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines, and they will also never be able to receive a U.S. government security clearance again. So here's the backstory with all of this, and bear with me for a moment because I went deep on this story because there's a lot going on here. The CIA has been warning that there's a real problem with their former officers who, you know, understand all of our deepest tools of spycraft and hacking and all of this in this global cybersecurity world are now getting hired by other countries for hundreds and thousands of dollars to go and apply their tradecraft from that they learned the CIA, sometimes against now our own people. So these former intelligence officers are selling themselves to the highest bidder to go and do nefarious work for whatever government is willing to pay them the highest price. The way that this particular thing went down is initially these dudes, they were part of a company called Cyberpoint that was doing what it looks like to be at least legal, if not entirely legitimate work for the UAE. UAE kept pushing them to go further and engage in illegal hacking activities, including some allegedly targeting American citizens themselves. So since they were with Cyberpoint and Cyberpoint was like legitimate and registered with the US government, et cetera, they were unwilling to do everything the Emiratis wanted. So the Emiratis started this other company called Dark Matter, got a bunch of the employees from Cyberpoint to go over to Dark Matter, and Dark Matter starts doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So one of the things that they did, and I don't know if you guys remember this story, remember the story about how baby monitors could be turned into spying devices?
This was a huge thing. Yeah.
That was Dark Matter, okay? These guys were doing things like that to spy on perceived enemies and adversaries of the UAE. So that's Dark Matter, but they're far from the only firm that's engaged in this type of nefarious activity. In fact, the biggest, sort of most notorious one at this point is this group called NSO that we told you about before. It's an Israeli-based firm. They're the ones that developed this Pegasus spyware that can literally take over your phone and without you even clicking on anything. So you don't even have to get like a phishing email or a weird text or whatever. They can just take over your phone and get access to everything that you have, everything you're doing there, including your encrypted apps. And they're selling it to the Mexican government. They're selling it to some of the Gulf states, all these actors that claim, oh, we're just going to use it in legitimate ways to combat crime, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, they were using it to target journalists, to target activists, to track, in Saudi's instance, the people who were around surrounding Jamal Khashoggi thousands of people, heads of state, prime ministers, all of these people being tracked by this Pegasus app. And so all American, Israeli, and other top intelligence officers around the world being recruited into these incredibly nefarious and oftentimes illegal lines of work. So this is just a glimpse into one small instance of what was going on here.
I just really want to underscore that last point, you guys. This is just one specific story. It's a pattern of how this stuff goes. That revolving door between the private and public sectors is all too pervasive in a number of different sort of fields. And this is not immune to it at all. Intelligence not immune to it at all. And you know, it creates a whole number of dangers, right? Because the contractors in question have their own incentives to continue to profit as much as possible. So if you have this revolving door where characters are working with both intelligence agencies and these contractors, then the intelligence agencies obviously start to behave in ways that are beneficial to those contractors and their bottom line. You can see how this immediately creates a perverse incentive structure for the intelligence community, which already out of self-preservation has a perverse incentive structure to fearmonger and to lie to the population, and all this kind of stuff, to propagandize all this kind of stuff, right? That's really what their job is. Like, what is the CIA there for? What's the NSA there for? Okay. Another point to drive home is that there often is, you know, this has been revealed by leakers over the years, but there often is information gathering on Americans by the CIA and the NSA, which is not supposed to be legal at all. And they always claim, well, they're not our targets. We just end up with information about them. And, you know, these gray areas are incredibly dangerous, especially when we give these agencies the ability to basically claim national security prevents us from being transparent about any of this, right? So an industry that is particularly susceptible to this kind of abuse gets to turn around and redact stuff from reports and censor what's actually happening and refuse to engage in any form of transparency under the guise of national security, right? Same with the Pentagon, same with the military industrial complex in its more original form, that we talked a little bit about earlier today, and how that affected the way that we handled Afghanistan and the rest of the Middle East. So it's pretty much always bad when you have public interests being swayed by these private contractors and their own rapacious incentive structure, right? It's almost always bad. And it's particularly bad when we're talking about government agencies that have additional powers, you know, like intelligence, like the military, where they can kind of just avoid any question or any scrutiny by claiming, oh no, it's about national security, I can't tell you, right? Anyhow, I want to move